We're live.
Good evening. My name is Dawn Mitchell-Harris. I am the second vice president of Baton Rouge Sigma alumni. I am here to welcome you on behalf of our president, Dr. Ernest Singleton. We are so happy you are here. We understand that the holidays bring a lot of joy, but for some people, it also brings depression and stress and loneliness. And we are here to let you know that you are not alone, that we are all here together, and we hope that the strategies and the information that you hear tonight will help you in some way. Now I'll turn this over to Pastor Dalco for an opening prayer.
Good evening. So we're excited to have you here with us at Camp Memorial United Methodist Church to be a part of this. Let us open up with prayer. God, your word said, "Come unto me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and you shall give us rest." God, we seek rest, for there is no rest like your rest. For in your rest there's peace. For in your rest there's joy. God, in your rest we're able to be centered. And so God, tonight we seek your rest. We ask that your spirit will guide us in this conversation, that it'll be fruitful for your people and will build up your kingdom. We do it all for your glory. In the powerful and prophetic name of Jesus, we pray. And we say amen.
Amen.
Good evening. My name is Ronisha Johnson. I'm a member of the Baton Rouge Sigma Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta and a member of the Physical and Mental Health Committee. And we are so excited to have you all here joining us. Everyone virtually, hello. Everyone in person, hello. Thank you all for coming out this evening to have a discussion a little bit about managing the stress that can come with holidays. We all know it's not always merry and bright for everybody. Sometimes that festive, warm feeling can be a little bit hard to come by in this season. And so we wanted to have an open and honest discussion about something that's not always talked about. And so we've invited, of course, Reverend Dalco here to give us the faith-based perspective. We also have our wonderful panelist, Ms. Rochelle Gibson here, who's a licensed clinical social worker, who's going to help us facilitate this discussion as well. Just a little bit about Rochelle Gibson Brady. She's a master level social worker, clinical license, and a bachelor's board-approved clinical supervisor. She's a dedicated, compassionate social worker with over 15 years of diverse experience spanning medical, behavioral health, hospice, and child welfare. She holds a Master of Social Work degree from LSU and a Bachelor of Science in Social Work from Southern University. Rochelle is licensed as a clinical social in Louisiana. Throughout her career, she has excelled in delivering individualized care, leading multiple disciplinary teams, and providing evidence-based practice and interventions. She's a skilled psychotherapist with expertise in crisis intervention, clinical assessments, treatment planning, family group, and individual therapy. Her leadership roles have included supervising clinical operations, monitoring mental health professionals, and implementing best practices in behavioral health care. Currently, Rochelle serves as a psychotherapist with Care South Medical and Dental Behavioral Health, where she conducts comprehensive clinical assessments, provides therapy, and ensures high-quality documentation, care, and delivery. She is also the founder of Purpose Counseling and Mental Health Services, LLC, where she offers specialized counseling in areas such as depression, grief, parenting, and couples therapy, which makes her a perfect component to our evening. And so we'd like to get started. We're trying to make this as interactive as possible. And so whether you are in person or virtually, you are able to participate and engage with us using your phone. So everybody usually asks people to put their cell phones up. Today, put your phone out for us. And let's talk a little bit about depression. And so if you have your phone, technical difficulties.
Exactly.
It happens like that sometimes. But I want you to take just a minute and think about what are some of those sources of holiday stress for you, right? Where can you tend to find some of the things that give a little bit of anxiety, some things that trigger those not so warm and fuzzy feelings for you during the holiday season. If anybody in the room would like to participate, you can verbalize. But if you want to join us virtually and electronically, you can go to slido.com and enter hashtag 1420348. You can use the QR code to scan as well to participate. But we kind of want to know, what are some of the top sources of stress for the holidays or depression? Again, you can join us at Slido, SLIDO.com, and enter hashtag 1420348. Let's see, we're getting some responses rolling in. Okay. All right, still rolling and things are changing. And these are just a few of the sources. I'm sure there are additional. It looks like what's topping out here is financial stress, followed closely by grief or missing loved ones. And I think we all recognize that many of these stressors can bring on feelings that may be hard to manage. And so we're going to talk to some professionals about how to manage that using our faith. Our mental health services are preferably a combination of both. And so let's go ahead and launch into our discussion. Rochelle, go ahead and talk to us a little bit more about these holiday specific triggers and managing them.
Good evening, how's everybody doing? Okay, were you able to actually answer the questionnaire? Yeah. Perfect. So holiday specific triggers are some of the questions that we just asked. That would include challenging things like trying to buy things for our children, our family members, trying to pay bills on top of trying to pay for everything else. Has anybody in here in the audience experienced that? Okay, all right. Another one that everybody seems to is neck and neck is grief or missing loved ones. So grief and missing loved ones is a twofold for me. I'm missing a loved one. But you can also have grief when you're missing relationships. We have some of those people, what do the lonely do at Christmas time? You can be lonely in different ways as well. But when you have all that coupled with the holidays, that has an extra stress on it. Okay, social isolation, strain from family members. Okay, the first two put strain on the third one, such as if I'm having to deal with grief, if I'm having to deal with I can't afford, sometimes people isolate. And isolation brings on a different kind of stress. So that's a big one as well. Unrealistic expectations of joy. Would someone like to tell me what they expect from Christmas? What is the expectation? Anybody? And I'll stand up and ask. Hold on 1 second. Okay, you said it. Yeah, you give her the mic. Okay, you said it.
I was just gonna say the expectation to be cheerful and excited and happy and, you know, just always very warm to others during this time.
Anybody else?
I think the expectation for love, I'm a big Christmas movie person. So that norm of love and finding love is an expectation for this time of year.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, and all of those things, say you go the whole year and you haven't had those expectations, and then you meet that expectation and you don't meet your New Year's resolutions and it's Christmas time and you're not gonna get that special gift, that's even more disappointing and it leads to depression. Okay, so, and we unrealistic seasonal changes. I mentioned seasonal changes because if all of you've noticed, the weather's getting unpredictable, even more so in Louisiana. But with that, you bring on things like seasonal affective disorder. That would be something that would be a chemical base. Like we have things that go on like daylight savings time, where the hours are shorter, the light goes out, that affects you mentally. So that also affects you. I don't want to talk about this.
Reverend Alco, maybe you can talk a little bit from a faith-based perspective on some of these sources. Are there any particular pressures added to have perfect Christmas programs in the church, or to go out and meet every member? What type of things that maybe experiences from religion do you think can kind of cause a little bit of that holiday stress?
I wouldn't say necessarily stress from, programs or anything like that. I mean, there's some, but I think as I was listening, as we look at these 5 things, grief, definitely there's a lot of grief in the congregation. I always kind of stress and remind the entire congregation that this season is not a joyful season, so to speak, for a lot of people, especially with those that have lost loved ones around this time. Matter of fact, this is a busy time in a sense. Pastor over here can attest to this. There are a lot of funerals around this time. A lot of people transition around this time. I'm dealing with that right now. And so it's a difficult time for a lot of people as they remember all of the experiences that they've had with loved ones. One of the things that I try to, from a therapeutic standpoint, a spiritual standpoint, you're more clinical. I'm not clinical, and I try to stay in my space. I do have some clinical background. I've done CPE, a few other things, but I'm still not clinical. But what I do see is a need for the spiritual component and understanding the spiritual component, which try to remind people what the season is really all about. Because sometimes we lose focus. We lose focus and we think it is about spending, but it's not. It's for us that are Christian. It's really about Christ and how do we connect with one another. And someone mentioned something about love, and it's about giving love. And so connecting with those spiritual components and reminding people of what it's about in terms of those that have kind of lost loved ones. One of my professors in pastoral care and counseling at seminary wrote a book on hope, and it stuck with me. And what he talked about was that people don't grieve over the past, they grieve over the future expectation. So his idea was that you have to rewrite the future story. How does that story? Because the story, the page has to turn, the chapter has to turn. So spiritually, what I see and what I attempt to do is help them turn the page and move forward. Thinking about some of the things that maybe that loved one wanted to do and how they can move forward and do that with them in their honor. And so a lot of different ways to kind of help them spiritually move forward. But I see all of those things in the life of the congregation. I don't know if I answered your question.
No, that was perfect response. Great answer, good answer. I know sometimes that people can say, oh, I'm depressed, or I'm in a bad mood. So Rochelle, maybe you can talk to us a little bit about the difference between just having holiday blues and when something would actually be concerning enough to be considered depression, like with a clinical diagnosis.
With the clinical diagnosis of depression, it has to be over a 2-week period, of course. And we usually give different assessments. You seek out a mental health professional and we give different assessments. There's different types of depression, but a lot of people experience depression during the holiday season. It may be for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and it may be situational. I would tell anybody to seek out a behavioral health therapist or a professional to see if it's a clinical depression or if it's just seasonal. We have talked to people about making sure, and that's one of the questions we do on our assessments, what's your spiritual background? Do you have people that support you with your family? And those are the things that really help people when they have something to lean on during these times. When they have lost a loved one, they can go to their pastor or their minister or their priest and talk about that. We also talk about things like the symptoms of depression. That would be lack of energy, not wanting to do anything, not wanting to eat or eating too much, losing interest in things. And those are all in assessments that we do as professionals. But if you notice one of your cohorts, one of your family members seems a little different, just ask, how are you doing? It's simple. It's all right to be not all right, but it's not all right to try to cover it up and isolate all the time.
So how do you think somebody could kind of, maybe Reverend Galvin, this is a good question for you. How could someone use any components or tenets of their faith to address feelings of depression, particularly related to the holidays? Maybe you've lost someone or you're feeling overwhelmed with the pressure. What are some things that you would recommend?
I think one of the things that, of course, the primary thing I'm going to recommend is prayer. You know, spiritually, I think prayer is important, but I also see saw the part up there about isolation. So I would probably suggest that person find some kind of connection, because I think connection is important. We need to commune with one another. And so definitely would recommend that. I think studying. I think I would also, me personally, if someone's going through something, I'm going to take the time to help them kind of process spiritually what they're going through. So maybe it's a conversation that we have during the holiday season, maybe 1 or 2 sessions or something like that. As I said, I'm not clinical. Typically, I'll do maybe a few sessions, and then I'm going to transition them to someone who's more therapeutic, is more clinical. It depends on the degree of the situation in terms of where they are. But definitely prayer, as I said, finding some way to connect with something socially, spiritually here, you know, in the church or in their community. So those are just some suggestions.
Okay, and I know culturally, sometimes we, as a people, maybe I have a little pushback against counseling, therapy, mental health services. You know, have you ever been confronted with prayer? I can pray about God's got me. How do you help your congregants maybe bridge that gap that you can do both?
Both in terms of prayer
and going to therapy.
And going to therapy. Yeah, you know, through the years, I know the stigma is there, but I'm also, from me personally, there's a shift to me personally, what I'm encountering, because as I ask questions, I've asked people, well, have you been at them? Yes, I've been. And so I hear that more now than I did maybe 30 years ago. I've been pastoring for almost 30 years. So I do think that's changing some. I think what I'm glad we're doing what we're doing, because what I see is a disconnect sometimes between the spiritual and the clinical. And that's what I'm encountering. And people really understanding how both need to kind of work together. And so it's making that connection. It's not this one or that one, but it's actually both that is very much needed today. So that's what I attempt to do now, is connect them with both entities.
Gotcha.
Because it's just a big issue at this point, and I think that's the best way to address it.
Okay, and I just want to point this one out. Like I said, in different assessments, one of the questions that we do ask, do you have a spiritual family? What's your religious preference? We want to make sure whatever it takes to make you the best version of whoever you are, you get that help. Always supportive of what people need to do to cope with life's day to day. Sometimes it takes more than me, it takes more than even praying. Sometimes somebody has a true clinical depression, and that may take medication. And with that, instead of saying somebody has bad nerves, if they're uncontrollably crying, we can put all these things into place to help them during the season. Because I tell people this all the time, life is out here life. And whoever you can get to try to help you get through it, let's use all of that. We don't want to put one down for the other one. We want to use them in conjunctions to help people with depression. I was so happy to see.
I just want to piggyback on that. You never know how God wants to heal you. So you don't limit how God will show up. And I think that's critical. And I try to help people explore it all because we don't know how God will heal. So we don't get who God is and how God is capable of moving. Just
Oh, I think that's one. Isn't that amazing? 73% of the audience that answered have sought out some type of mental health.
Absolutely, it is super commendable, and I agree with Reverend. You see the trends are changing, which is empowering, right? And seeing people recognize that I can't do it all on my own. I'm helpless without help. I think that's important. What do you say for either one of your perspectives for the 27% who maybe have been afraid, resistant, don't think that it's gonna apply to me, don't believe it's gonna help? What kind of message could you put out to someone who's maybe a little resistant to explore professional mental health help?
Well, from my perspective, I notice that people usually come to our clinic or come to me in a moment of crisis, when something is going on. I think that this should be just like you go to the doctor to get medication or have a general practitioner. You should also have a therapist that knows you. You go to your pastor, your mentors, people know who you are and know your situation. And it's so important to form that relationship before the crisis. Now, we're here for the crisis, but we want to get you better and have you have a solid foundation with someone so you can call them and say, I need to come in. And it is changing, especially in our community, and I appreciate everybody doing that. But one of the things I want to say, the professionals aren't engaging in mental health services as much because, you know, we know everything, but everyone should have somebody on their team, including some spiritual, religious background to try to help them through things. For whatever reason, they don't. I just want everybody to have that option to have that.
And I think whether it is you are missing someone who's passed away and this is your first holiday without them, maybe like I said, you're struggling financially, you're just not in the mood, you don't have the family. I know that's a little bit of my experience, just being a little disconnected. What can you do? What are some of the strategies that you guys think that we can use to kind of support each other, address some of these feelings and issues, and maybe some resources? What are some of the strategies that you think we could use?
Well, some of the strategies I tell my clients to use is, if you're tired, sit down, be tired, sit down and get your rest. Don't try to go out and do everything, seek professional help. Do what you're supposed to do, consult with a mental health professional. If you need to do on the spiritual realm, talk to everybody that can help you. Also, practice stress management. Like I said, if you're tired, sit down. I'm not saying isolate, but if you're tired, you can't make every dance, every ball. It's very stressful. If you don't have the financial wherewithal, just say I don't have the bandwidth, or don't say anything at all. Make sure that you maintain a healthy routine. During the holiday session, I think our season, that is the roughest part because we have parties, we want to go everywhere, we want to do everything, and we can't do that. It's too tiring on our body. So you have to know your body, you have to know what you can and cannot take, and no is a complete sentence. And just stay home and be by yourself sometimes, and it's okay. Limit alcohol and substance use. And substance use can be anything that would be addictive. Too much shopping. Okay.
Too much food.
Too much food, too much drinking, too much partying, too much of anything is not good for you. Okay, prioritize self-care, you know, and those are things you would talk to your therapist about, and your pastor, those are things. What is self-care for you? Because everybody in here has a different self-care routine. You have to know that and know how to stick to it during these times.
What are some suggestions that maybe you would have to kind of prioritize taking care of yourself during this overwhelming season?
I always preach sleep hygiene, sleep, eat healthy, be around people that energize you, not take away from you. Pray, meditate, mindfulness, what it takes for you whoever it is. I see these sisters in here spending time together, that might regenerate everybody, energize you. Spending time with your children, family members, people who just inspire you, that's what you should be doing.
Reverend, what are some suggestions or strategies from your point of view that people can use to kind of help cope with holiday depression and feelings?
Well, she definitely covered quite a bit and hit some things that I would have suggested as well. But definitely, and I've kind of mentioned some of the things that I've already mentioned. I think the prayer, I think connecting with some people, making sure that you're not isolated and so all by yourself during this particular season. I think, once again, and I said this earlier, remember what it's all about. Remember and keep in mind what this season is about, to kind of center yourself. And many of the things, and don't make it all about spending, because that creates so much stress and pressure, as we have identified. But it's so commercial today. And anytime we turn on the TV, radio, or something, there's an advertisement, spend. Might as well be saying, spend all your money. And so there's the impulse to do that. And so it's just really reminding people that that's not what this is about. The connection, the love, Christ being born into the world, and remembering that. And so those are just some of the things that I would kind of, in terms of strategy, connect with a loved one,
Absolutely, relationships matter, and that connection is
relationship. Yeah, and remember the relationships.
All right, we have an audience question. We'll go ahead.
Yes, so in terms of relationships and maintaining those relationships in a civilized way during the holidays, and we're speaking about self-care and doing what your mental health, being fair to your mental health. Can you shed some light on strategies for handling offense? Well, my family won't be coming to Christmas dinner this year. We're gonna stay home. What you mean? Why you not coming? How do you handle that? And do you get them, informed early so they can soak in and sink in, and everybody will know. You don't wait till the last minute. I didn't cook all this food. Y'all better come. So we're in this hospitality state where people get easily offended if you're not coming over. So could you please speak to those who may be offended at the decision you make?
I'm gonna go say something that you said earlier that I think is important. Remember where you are and what you need. Self-care is critical. I truly believe that self-care is critical. We all reach a certain places, and no one knows you the way you know you. And so sometimes it may be a situation where you can't handle the whole crowd and all of that. But you have to know that and make that decision for yourself and move according to what's in your best interest in terms of your self-care. So I think, and the people that love you will understand that too. And so I just think that that's what I would say. Try to help that person to understand and help those loved ones out there who want you there. Look, I'm a person that I never get to go home for Christmas. Matter of fact, I was talking I have like 3 moms, Joe. So, I was talking to one of them earlier. But what are y'all doing for Christmas? We're gonna stay right here. But I think they always wanted to see me, but I just can't accommodate, just based upon who I am and what I do. And so I just expressing how you feel and why you need to do it, I think is critical.
I would say if someone's trying to force you to do something, don't do it. Just don't do it. But that's easy for me to say because I'm in a different space in my life. We have family pressures to be somewhere we're supposed to be, but once again, you have to do what's best for you because this is how arguments start. If you go because you don't really want to be there, and then you go there and act ugly with everybody, being nasty to everybody, you're not doing anybody a favor by going somewhere and you don't want to be there. If you think people are going to treat you well, don't go. Just a plug. That's why you need a therapist so you can talk about this before these times happen. And maybe we can do a plan. Maybe we can work out a plan on what to do. Instead of being around a lot of people, maybe you have some anxiety going on. Maybe we can talk about starting another tradition. Maybe you can do a breakfast with just your close family members. I have a very big family, so everything we do is always big. But I also know to say, I'm tired.
Right.
I'm tired.
Sounds like putting some boundaries in
You
place
have to put
is very
boundaries.
important, and also making sure that sometimes it's easy to say no. The hard part is dealing with the guilt because you said no.
Right, and in therapy, that's what we talk about. Why do you feel that guilt? So it's a constant, it's a circle. Why do you feel that guilt? Is someone putting that guilt on you because somebody put that guilt on them? And so once the people come to us when they're in crisis, and that's why we're here all year long, so we can talk about that before we get to that point.
Absolutely. I kind of want to take just a little bit of a turn because I'm thinking about parents with children, and everybody wants to create this magic for their children during the holidays, and for some people that's not always easily attainable. What type of guidance or I guess even suggestions could you give to parents who are trying to make the impossible happen and being able to deal with maybe their children don't get everything that they ask for this Christmas season?
I'm laughing because I have a 6-year-old.
You got the list.
Oh, bless your heart.
Yes, I know. Yeah, pray for me.
Lord, yes.
So we gave him one of the magazines with all the toys and things. I think, I don't know if Walmart or one of them puts this magazine out with all Amazon. Anyway, to circle what he wanted, what were the main toys, he circled almost the entire magazine.
Yeah.
And so their expectations are lofty. And I think as a parent, for me, it's making sure that he understands what it's about, what we're willing to do. And also helping parents understand the greatest gift that you can give your child, your children, is your time and your love.
Absolutely.
And making Christmas meaningful to them. And that does not require money. It does not. Some of my greatest Christmas memories are not centered around money, are gifts I received. And helping people and helping parents understand that what they will remember will not be what you bought and placed under the tree.
Now, you can do stuff like, I would say do things that don't require money. Volunteer, do things for other people. Give your time and show your children you can give your time. Feed a family. And you can tell children all day long, It's not about that, and I appreciate that, but children learn from their parents. So if you're not trying to do the most, the children will sometimes do the most anyway. But if you're not trying to, if you're trying to show them, do different, be the better you want them to see, you know. Volunteer somewhere, go to church, go to the church programs, do something for somebody in the church that doesn't have a family, invite them over and talk to your children. These kids are coming out at a month old working iPhones, so they understand. So talk to them about that stuff. Have them give old toys to people that don't have or refurbished. So you can start new things. It doesn't always have to be about money. That's usually where we have our issues with when we think money solves everything.
Okay, we kind of have a question in the chat that could be related to that. You know, sometimes you may tell, you may tell family, I'm focusing on, teaching my children to give back, so we don't want all of the gifts. And maybe mama and papa are like, I'm gonna get them whatever I want them to have, right? So the question is, how do we get support from our family, our siblings, or others when we're trying to establish boundaries within our family unit? Or how can I get that support?
You don't have to ask for the support, you just have to do it. And people, once they see, with most things, once people see, look, that's not gonna go on in my house, this is how I'm gonna run my house, they'll see how you react to different things. Most people call around and ask, well, what does this person want, or what does that person want? Just say, oh, this is what we're doing, we're giving away. Try to invest in your children's future instead of just a toy. Reading books, doing different things like that.
Just to answer that question as well, I would say consistency. Just being consistent. I've learned with my family, consistency. When they know that you're serious about something and you're consistent, they kind of, come on board. I had to do the same thing when I answered my call and went into the ministry. They weren't sure. Are you serious about this? But once they saw that, they came on board for it. And so consistency, I think, in terms of establishing boundaries, be consistent. When you're inconsistent, that's when it becomes a problem and not understanding. But if you're consistent with establishing those boundaries, I think you're good.
Yeah, this it doesn't have to do with Christmas, but when we started having, when we had our first baby, she turned 1, right? So at that 1-year-old birthday, we're having a party for the baby, right? And so we're having ice cream and cake. So I got all kind of calls. You ain't having no chili dogs? Where the food? Because that's what we have evolved into. And once they realize, no, come to Monica's birthday party, it's ice cream and cake, that's it. You get your house. They didn't expect going forward. They didn't expect anything less or anything different. So yeah, I can attest to, you create what you want your life to look like.
Don't start that, you can't keep up.
Absolutely. I think sometimes, it can feel a little overwhelming to say, oh my God, I need a little bit of support. I don't think I need to reach out to a counselor or therapist or even my pastor, but what are some things that each regular person can do to be supportive and encouraging to someone who maybe is experiencing a little bit of a holiday blues?
I think being there, just presence. Oftentimes, I think we think we need to say a lot. And what I've found is most time, in most cases, especially with some of the things that we deal with, around this time of grief, your presence is powerful. Your presence makes a difference. When someone loses a loved one during this time of the year, you just being there, them placing their eyes on you is significant. But sometimes we say too much.
Yes, I agree.
And we do more harm by speaking, when really all you needed to do was listen and be present. So that's,
Hey, be present, I like that one, Rochelle.
I have a lot of people that when they lose someone, they'll say, well, I didn't go by because I didn't know what to say, or, when we have people with mental illness, I don't know what to do. Just go, just be there, sit, be in the silence. Reach out to a mental health professional. They always have different things like 988, which is a free service that you can call. That's all over the country. 988, you can call that number just like you call 911, and somebody is there to talk to you 24 hours a day, wherever you're at. If you're in a local area, we have different programs in the Baton Rouge area. We can give you numbers to 211 in the Baton Rouge area. If you need assistance with different things like paying rent, that's the United Way. If you need someone to help you get different things like counseling, and, you know, I'm at Care South in Zachary, we have different offices. We just have so many different resources in the area, we just have to reach out to them. But 988, and you can also text that. If you're having suicidal thoughts, if you're having depression, call those numbers, you know, and those are free services, and then they can get you to another professional.
Okay, I like that. I think it's always important to share some tangible things to take away, right? Encouragement and good words is good, but we always want something that we can actually take action on. My next question a little bit is about, how are we going to, for people who say, you know, I'm a self-proclaimed humbug. I'm not a holiday girl. I don't get those warm and fuzzy feelings. But what can you say, or how can you encourage someone to maybe create new experiences around the holiday so it doesn't feel like such an empty thing? Or maybe, you know, it's not the same since Big Mama died and I don't want to do it, right? So how can you get people to kind of, I don't want you to be forced into some happiness, but I do want you to be able to find the joy.
Like you said before, be consistent. Yes, a loved one may not be here, but evidently they instilled that in you. Like I told you, we had a loss this year, and the first thing I said, well, Granny would want us not to do something. We're gonna sit around and cry, and we're gonna tell jokes about her, but we're gonna be together. We're gonna talk about it. We're gonna talk about what she would want us to do. But we all got together. We laughed, we played, we did what we did when she was here, because when our loved ones leave us, they're not leaving us to be mourning. They're leaving us, and they taught us. We were blessed to have that. Everybody doesn't have that, but it's time for everything. And so if you even have to get together and just snap and cry, do that. Let that be all right. It's okay not to be all right. It's not okay to not function anymore, because that's not what anybody would want. And then you come into the realm of mental illness, because that's the definition. When you stop functioning right, something else might be going on. If you can't pull yourself out of it, something else might need to be addressed.
yes, pretty much the same thing. Turn that page, as I said earlier, in terms of the future story. How do you bring them forward with you? Maybe starting a new tradition based upon something that person identified with, you know, something that you love, but you bring them forward, because innately they are a part of you and will always be a part. And so it's just a rewrite of the story in terms of your expectation, but you bring new tradition in a new way to bring that person forward.
Absolutely. Okay, and so I definitely want to talk just a little bit about the resources. I think, Rochelle, you've talked to us a little bit about some resources that people can actually reach out to for professional help when, you know, your friend or your family may not be sufficient enough. So you want to talk a little bit about these resources?
Okay, I said something about counseling services. As he said, you can seek the church for the counseling services, or you can seek clinically based services. We have Care South in the local area. We're located in Baton Rouge, Zachary, Donaldsonville, and Plaquemine. If we don't do it for you, come to us and we'll give you someone that can. Everybody's not gonna match up, but we can help you match it up. There's different websites that you go to. like, nominee. If you have a social worker in your family, I have many, we just sit around and we talk about resources. We're gonna have some resources in the back, but I would say go to, nominee, go to 988, go to the local offices, 211. Call your insurance companies. If your insurance companies, they usually have numbers that will cover you. Most places have sliding scales. I know that if you don't have insurance, there's a way we can work that out with Carousel. We have sliding scales as well. We want you to get the help that you need. They have group sessions, they have the VA, they have different things. Just ask someone.
Can you elaborate on that, the sliding scale piece? Because I think that's one of the hindrances with a lot of people is the financial piece in terms of what they think. So can you just speak to that a little bit more deeper so they'll understand? Because I really believe it's a big issue.
Okay, at Carousel, we have a policy, we don't want to turn anybody away. Of course, we want people to have insurance, but if you do not have insurance, haven't registered for insurance, you come in, you fill out an application, and based on what you bring in, your income, you can see a doctor or a mental health provider on a sliding scale. You can also, if you go to the pharmacy, that can be on a sliding scale. We're trying to help people, and we're putting it out there for you to come in. So we're not trying to turn people away. We don't know if people have insurance. But come in and see what we have to offer. We have groups. They have groups on Saturdays at Carousel. And I'm saying Carousel because that's the one that I work for and I know that they do, but they have different places around Baton Rouge you can go to as well. And if, like I said, if it doesn't work with us or you want to go somewhere else, give us a call and we will, take you to those different people. And we're gonna try to get you the services that you need.
All right, very good. I think, again, just making sure that people have some takeaways to actually come away from this with. I want to turn over the last few minutes of our program for questions from the audience. You can ask us virtually in any of our electronic chats, or you can ask us verbally here in the room. So if anybody have any questions, comments, go ahead, sir.
In your work clinically or pastor you, how much of the reaction to people not seeking services is related to them thinking that they're going to be labeled crazy because they're seeking mental health?
I can answer that. A lot of people come in the office, like I told you, usually people come to us in crisis. And they're not caring if you call them crazy or not, they just want to be well. We have HIPAA regulations where we can't talk about, I could have 50 clients in here. I can't even acknowledge that they're a client. We have HIPAA rules. We have things that we don't question. I don't question if somebody is crazy or not because it's not for the grace of God. I'm not in the same situation. So I would never call someone crazy. That's just a stigma that they have. And my granny told me, keep on getting up. You might be going through that too. So I try to not judge. Most people that I know in this profession do not judge. But you find someone that you can go to. And usually when you ask somebody, you can see if that's the person you trust. Make sure that you trust them, make sure that, and give them a chance.
So you don't find that to be a problem?
With the older generation, I find it to be a problem. And when I say older generation, I'm saying people, more so like people in like their 80s or 90s. But I have some clients that are in their 80s and 90s. They go to a crisis and they need to come to us. And that's when we're here to talk to them.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that, yeah, it's, that's part of the stigma, of course, that I'm crazy or, I don't want to be associated with being crazy. But once again, I think things have changed a lot. There's a lot more awareness about mental health and being responsible in terms of your mental health. I think it's helped tremendously. I think understanding the separation between who you are and the problems you have, that you are not your problems. You know, understanding that, I think from a spiritual standpoint, that's key to understand. I preached a sermon years and years ago from the story of the demoniac man from Gerasene. What Jesus does is separate the problem from the person. I want you to think about that. He separates the problem from the person because Jesus sees the person and the person is whole, but that person had a problem. And it's the same person that everybody thought was somewhat crazy. But thank God, Jesus saw the person. And so we all, if we look at crazy, we look at the definition of crazy, we're all a little abnormal. If we wanna, every last one of us. You know? So we all in the boat together. You know? And so it's just some of us have a layer of issues and circumstances that need to be managed different. And that's what I love about that story, because once again, Jesus helps that person see who they are, separate from the issues that were within them. So I'm
glad you stated it, because that used to be a big problem.
And it's understanding that, I don't, that word crazy is not a word that,
I couldn't think of a better way.
But no, what you're saying is legitimate. I mean, and that's actually how people identify, you know, individuals with mental health issues. And so it's unfortunate, but no, they have a certain set of, we all have a certain set of problems that we need to manage.
And let me clarify this. What you handled at 20 may not be what you can handle at 30. Won't be what you handle at 40, definitely won't be what you handle at 50. Our body takes score. So we survive. I see a lot of women and men in the audience, but women, I can talk, like the things that I could take when I was in my 30s raising my children, it's different from what I can take now. And I might need to reach out and ask for some help. That doesn't make me crazy. That makes me going through a situation. And in order so I don't end up where I'm doing something I don't have any business doing, seek that help. Sometimes depression, like we talk about, is situational. Sometimes it's because you're going through a divorce. I have a lot of people that come to me after maybe they've gotten divorced and everything that they've known is gone up in flames and they don't know how to restart their life, or they lost a loved one and they don't have no reason to live anymore. Our body takes score. So keep on getting up every day. You're gonna go through something. And so we just have to be kind to each other. We have to reach out to each other and try to be there for each other. And I don't think it's crazy at all. I'm just hoping that we as a community start embracing people talking to us, and when somebody say, I can't do it, we don't try to push them.
Sometimes it's just a simple thing like retirement.
Yes.
They don't know what to do with their life after they retire.
Right. People discount you, you have to go, you have to deal with, who am I now? Do people not respect me now? It's a thing. You're absolutely right.
Okay, I have a question. You was talking about retirement, you wish we had done it earlier.
Yes.
Is there a direct correlation between depression and thoughts?
Depression and thoughts, what type of thoughts?
Okay, negative thoughts, because I mean, if you're thinking something positive, you generally have, a little bit upbeat. But just negative thoughts, some people, okay, you lose a loved one and all you can think about is this person is no longer here. This person is, I'm gonna miss them and woe is me. And is there?
That has to do with coping skills, but it also has to do, I always tell my clients, Depression is about the past, anxiety is about the future. Depression is about, I shoulda, woulda, coulda, why didn't I do it? And you're like, I shoulda did this, I shoulda did this, I shoulda went this way, I shoulda got this degree, I shoulda married this person. Why didn't I know? I shoulda, woulda, coulda. That's depression. Anxiety is, what if I go into Walmart and somebody does me something? What if I eat this and this happens? What if I don't get this job? So that has to do with, if you're starting to have negative thoughts, that goes into functioning. We would just have to see at what point you're in. Sometimes that's people's coping mechanism to be negative. Some people bask in foolishness. But we have to also, address that, turn that around. If it's messing with somebody's outlook, like I said, mental illness is when it starts messing with their function, and then it starts messing with their function. And we might need to just turn your thoughts around. It's strength-based. And that's a way that we can turn your thoughts, look at stuff in a different way.
Is there also a separation between clinical depression and depression that could kind of hit what issues?
It depends on how long it's been going on and if it's affecting you. Like I said, some people are just negative people. They were raised up as being negative. That may just be who that person is, personality, or some people just may have a clinical depression, and then we might need to look at strategies, coping skills, maybe medication. If it's, because sometimes you just need a little help to get out of it, and then you'll be all right. But we would have to sit down and look at each person individually, because it's not a blanketed.
But I think what you were kind of referring to is thought life in terms of if you think more positive, then it pulls you out of being depressed. Am I right? Correct. And so what I'm saying is the difference between exactly right, because someone who's clinically depressed can't simply do that.
Right.
And that's what I was trying to.
Some people that are clinically depressed, well, they definitely can't do it.
Right.
And also, if everybody in your family always talk negatively, you can't do that either. You have to relearn how you cope. And so it may not be a medical or chemical depression, but it may be how you were raised. And it may work for you. I'm knocking down walls, but when you get to a certain point, you can't knock down any walls anymore. You might need to rethink how you deal with stuff.
I had a sermon years ago I preached, and we always talk about generational curses, but what we don't talk about is generational contamination. Those things that contaminate you, that you've been exposed to, that's a big issue.
So is it safe to say that the first or the beginning cure for anybody is to be pleased with yourself?
That sounds good, but I would have to know what you mean by please. But how you look at life, how you want people to look at you, what you want for people to see about you, what makes you happy. And what makes you happy? And I would say about 9 times out of 10, no one knows what makes them happy, what brings them joy. I like going to work. No, what makes you happy? Does the smell of fresh cut grass make you happy? Does your children smiling make you happy? So what makes you happy? What brings you joy? Because you're not gonna always be happy. So what fills in that gap? And I don't want the fruit butterfly stuff. I wanna know what makes you happy. Kids tell me money, how much money? $20, $20,000, 20 million? We detailed in it, and that's what you get in therapy. We can, you always, if you have a plan, you can reach it, but if you just say, I'm just not happy, why? Why aren't you happy?
Yeah, so my question is, if you could kind of touch base on conditions that would possibly mimic depression. I know for me, I had rather late diagnosis like ADHD, and some of the symptoms, like the sleeping, definitely mimic depression. So it was a depression diagnosis, and when none of that worked, it was like, okay, let's switch over. So if you can touch base on those, I think that would be helpful.
Well, I just want to say, in Black women, depression shows up as ADHD. Depression shows up in Black women as aggression. Depression shows up as meanness, and we're not mean, we have ADHD. Your house not clean, you gotta do this, you have 50 things undone. It may be undiagnosed ADHD. So if you go to a really good clinician, they'll see that. Lack of vitamin D, okay? Not eating right, not eating the right foods, not getting the right exercise, not doing what it takes for your body to function at the level it needs to. And so, once again, we gotta know who we are, what we do, and how it affects us. So, yeah, ADHD can show up in, especially African American women as depression. But that's when you talk about what's really going on. So if you would come to my office, we have different assessments that we can do. And if you're sitting there telling me this, and this, and I'm like, yeah, have you gone to the doctor and checked your vitamin D first? You know, we're vitamin D deficient. Are you taking your vitamins? Are the vitamins you taking for you? Are you getting the sleep? What does that look like? How are you preparing your meals? Like all of that comes across when you come see a professional, and I'm sure when you do the spiritual, but you have to take care of yourself as a whole, not just one part of it. So depression is not always the answer. So that's why we test for more than just depression.
We have a comment here in the chat from one of my social work sisters. She says that depression can sometimes show up as being busy, staying constantly busy. Can you guys comment on that? And then a question from the audience here.
Oh, we have some high functioning ADHD, high functioning people. If you took the classes in school and you're gifted and talented and you stay busy, let's give you a survey and see what it looks like, you know? When we have these children and we have these families and we have, everything has to be perfect. And if it's not perfect, you lose it. Everybody about to pay. That's not a good thing. Are you surviving? You know, why are we seeking perfection? What are we doing? So we have to talk about that. That's what we would do in therapy. We would have to see where you get these ideas from. Is it depression? Is it anxiety? Is it ADHD? Do we have a cousin that got a check and we need to see what was going on with them? Is it in the family? We check history of the family. All of that goes into your mental health. And so it's just not one thing, it's a gamut of things. That's why we do assessments and we do psychosocials to figure out what's going on. It might be your job, it might be the person you're with. You don't know, you gotta talk about it.
Oh, I have two things. One, when I guess a friend is going through something and you want to give them advice, but you know, you normally say, you know, you just need to, you know, pray about it. But what if they're always hearing, you just need to pray about it, or they already sought, you know, counseling? Like, what other thing that we can tell them that they can do, like to encourage them?
Be encouraged. You can tell them be encouraged. You can tell them, you said they sought counseling before. If they sought counseling and that counselor, there's different types of counselors. Sometimes you may go to a spiritual counselor that you connect with. Sometimes you may go to, I'm a social worker, proud to be a social worker. Social workers do different things. You may go to a licensed professional counselor. You connect with who connects with you, okay? Everybody's not going to connect with you. Usually when people say, and as social worker, as a clinical social worker, I don't give advice. I don't give advice. We talk through it, and usually people tell me, well, I've been doing that. How has it been working out for me? Let's talk about it. Let's figure out where it's not my job to give advice. Lord, if I could give somebody advice, I'd be pretty good. But I don't give advice. I go off the tools that you have, and we try to figure out what it means, because everybody's different. So we don't give advice. We help you figure out what you need to do in your situation. So that may be different, but I don't give it. We don't try to give advice. We try to do imperial-based clinical work. We talk about it. I'm usually straightforward with my clients. You'll know if you're saying something that's, you know, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go along with the self-determination, but if it doesn't make sense and you keep, you know, running into a wall, what's that the definition of? Okay, so that, we don't give advice, but we'll help you figure out, and if a friend is going through that, seek another counselor.
I would just simply say, I don't do that either. I'm more or less going to help you see your need, but I'm not gonna give you, and I think that's key too. Oftentimes, if you sit with that person and listen to them, they have their solution. I've found if you listen and help them, help what's inside of them and what they need to do to come out of it. Because oftentimes I've done that, where I've just sat and spiritually you can hear, you sit and listen. They'll tell you what they're needing to do and what their next steps are. Oftentimes it's just, and that's when I went back, I'll go back and say that presence, but also active listening. It's amazing what you learn from active listening. And sometimes your friends and people around you just need someone to actively listen to them and help them process. It's not telling them what to do, it's helping them process what's already inside. And that really, it's always worked.
Very good questions. I'm gonna wrap with this last question that can probably be helpful to everyone. Are there any self-assessments that people can do maybe online to see if there's something concerning enough to reach out that you would recommend?
There are. One of the assessments that I use and one of the tools that I use in practice is if you have an iPhone or Android, but I know about the iPhone, on everybody's iPhone, you have a free app called Help. Okay, you can go to Help, go to Browse, and go to Wellbeing. In there, you can talk about, they have the assessment, the PHQ-9 and the GAD-7. You answer it, once it scores and they think that you need to seek help, they have numbers that you can reach through the iPhone, and it's also on the Android, and it's it's already on your phone. You don't have to buy anything, you don't have to do anything, it's already on there. I have my people that are going through depression and we're like, okay, is this depression or something else? Or let's see if it's depression or does it have something to do with someone's menstrual cycle? Let's see if it has something to do with the season. Track your moods every day. You can bring it up on your watch and say, okay, I'm feeling good, and it has everything. So like I said, you can go, it's called Help. It's a white box, and like I said, it's a free service, and it's called Help. Under Help, you go to Browse. Under Browse, you go to Mental Health Wellbeing. You can take the assessments there. If you score high enough, it will give you those different resources like 9A, feeling depressed. It will also tell you, hey, you need to seek professional help. You need to go to your mental health professional or go to the ER. That's where you would go, and it's a free service. Health. Yes.
All right, very good. Reverend Dalco and Rochelle, if you guys want to give us one closing word just on any, not advice, any guidance, support, encouragement on just last words to kind of wrap us up on managing this holiday stress and depression that can come.
Okay, I would say if you want help, if you need help, don't be scared to ask somebody. If you think people don't take you seriously, most people will if you start talking to them. People don't know what other people are going through. And you're not, I promise you, you are not the only one out here. I talk to people every day. If you're worried about people knowing what you're going through, your testimony may help somebody else. Your struggles may bless somebody else. So many of us are going through it and we have to lean on each other. And I'm talking about even from a clinical, I know people want to come in and they don't want anybody to see them. But you may be helping me because you're telling me what you're going through. So talk to people. Open up. Everybody's going through something. Everybody is going through something. If they tell you they're not telling you the truth.
Reverend.
I'll simply say it this way. The greatest gift is you. The greatest gift is you. We're all different, and we all created in His image, and we all represent the identity of who God is. With all our nuances, with every little different thing about you, you're the greatest gift. Your difference, who you are, every aspect of who you are is a gift to the Lord. And remember that in this season, as people are exchanging gifts, the greatest gift is you.
Amen.
Being in this world.
Amen. Thank you. I can say amen on that for sure. Well, we want to thank everybody out there watching us virtually, everyone here in the sanctuary with us. We do want to thank you for joining us for Silent Nights, which wasn't silent at all. And so glad to join us. Please follow our pages on social media so that you can keep up with what Baton Rouge Sigma is doing in the community. Thank you so much, and you guys have a good night.